Bigfoot Society would like to thank the following sponsors for helping make the podcast possible. The Singular Fortean Society has combined open and honest paranormal investigation and journalism since 2016. Visit the Society at Singular Fortean for all the latest weird news and more. Come with us and investigate the impossible. Lauren Smith is the hostess for Nightcaller's Bigfoot Radio, which has been on air for over a decade and has completed over 300 shows. Lauren brings with her a unique viewpoint given that she is not only the daughter of one of the veteran female Bigfoot researchers in the South, but she has been conducting field research since she was a preteen some 20 years ago. Nightcallers is a Bigfoot world favorite and, along with interviewing researchers and witnesses, often features interviews with guests from the documentary, film, and entertainment industry. Lauren also does a vidcast segment called Nightcallers, which features real encounters sent in by viewers. You can find all of this and more at nightcallersproductions.com. Ending Saturday, April 17th, 2021. Let's get started. We've got all sorts of things going on here. And again, if you do raise your hand and come up on stage, it is a thing where, this is recorded and it will be put up on YouTube. Maybe other things as well, but let's get started. So first thing I definitely want to share is my friends over at Wild and Weird, West Virginia, have released a very cool mini documentary this week called Wineberry, and this is a 20-minute video about how they are looking into a Bigfoot track that they found in West Virginia in their area, and it is a very cool short little movie. You can watch it today, which I definitely recommend. I'll have the link for that in the show notes. But definitely Joe Perdue, I've had him on the podcast, and he is a super, super cool guy. Hopefully I'll be chatting with Ron in the future, maybe set that up. The next news item that we have going on today is, and it's a little bit of a stretch, but I think you'll be able to get the idea. So new remote work program announced in West Virginia. So we know that West Virginia is the thing for cryptids. So if you're a person where you're like, hey, I might want to move to a place with a lot of cryptids. Well, why not move to a place that's going to give you a $12,000 cash incentive and $10,000 paid in monthly installments over the first year, with $2,000 at the end of the second year, and also including 1 year of free outdoor recreation? West Virginia, as of this Monday, is starting a new work remote program. So, hey, if you're in the market to try to get closer to where the cryptid action is, definitely check out this new remote work program that West Virginia has announced this week. Pretty cool stuff. And again, as I'm reading through these stories, if you have anything, any comments, feel free to raise your hand. But let's continue. Next article is Russian government official admits to faking Yeti sightings. This is from the Sharon, I'm going to bring you up on stage here. I am going to read through the article real quick. So this is from mysteriousuniverse.org, Paul Seaburn. So pretty much what it is there's this guy in Russia, and they had a reward for someone if you can capture a Yeti of approximately $13,000 American, or 1 million rubles. People started coming, rushed to scour the forest. Of course, no one found the Yeti, but hey, sure attracted increased attention. It even goes to the point where this gentleman says he upped the ante by ordering a subordinate to find someone tall, throw off his office suit, turn a fur coat inside out, and run around. Oh boy, and warn them not to get shot. Of course, that didn't work. This is a cautionary tale because I feel like we might have something, you can see the parallels of what's going on in the U.S. here. I mean, if you're going to do a tourism thing, please don't have someone go out in a suit. We don't want that person to get shot, rather. But Sharon, I'd be curious what thoughts you have regarding this.
Well, So back in the day, 2011, I was running the site called Doubtful News. And at the time, Jeff Meldrum, along with John Bindernagel and Ron Moorhead, were invited to the Kemerovo region of Russia, Siberia, to take part in this get together. They brought scientists over, and namely it was Igor Burtsev, who was the director of the International Center of Hominology in the Kemerovo region. And, Birds had held the strong belief that Yetis were really there. So they wanted to draw attention to this, and they brought these researchers over from the US along with other countries, and they took them on this tour. And when Meldrum got back, he was furious. I'm not sure if many of you remember at the time that he did speak to at a Bigfoot conference that I attended in Pennsylvania at the time, and I talked to him about it, and he was really angry that they were clearly duped. And some of the evidence that he says was presented is where they were staying, wherever they walked, the tour guides would point out, oh, look, broken branch here, and footprints. They were taken to the cave, and everything looked like it had been staged. And at one point, where they even pointed out there was a nest there, Meldrum says that, well, it doesn't look like it's actually been used. He said Burtsev jumped in the nest and tried to show that, oh, look, it's perfect
Oh
sized for
my
a
goodness.
Yeti. It was incredible what he was saying that they were doing. They also brought in a Michigan woman, Robin Lynn Pfeiffer, who claimed that Bigfoot was living on her farm there, and he said it was just outrageous. People were confronting each other about the evidence. They were yelling at each other. It was just Meldrum made a joke about dropping a Cliff Bar on the ground and said, "Oh, look, Yeti poop." I mean, it was just a catastrophe. And when he got back, it was just another case of where they were clearly trying to promote tourism. At one point, he says that all the scientists and researchers there were asked to sign a press release that said scientists believe 95% certainty that Yeti exists here in the Kemerovo region. And Meldrum said, I'm not going to sign that.
Wow, that is
Science
intense.
doesn't work by consensus like this. So yeah, I do have I found the article up back in my archive. So I do have it up. The link is on my Twitter, which is I Doubt It. If anyone wants to read it, it was just astounding what he told me had happened. I just wanted to share that.
Oh, I appreciate that, Sharon. It's crazy what can happen when people when tourism gets involved. But thankfully, Dr. Meldrum had the sounds like he had the clarity of mind not to get overly involved with anything too crazy. Um, so let's see. Next up on the docket, of course, I'm gonna work it in because this was released this last week. Scheduled release for Van Meter Visitor Festival. This is my favorite thing. 100%. So here we go. If in case you're not aware, this is a one-day festival that takes place just west of Des Moines, Iowa, in a small town where, of course, you had the Van Meter visitor sighting in 1903. But there are going to be some solid speakers this year. I mean, really, they're going from 12:30 noontime all the way up to 6:30. It's crazy. We got Steve Ward, who is a great speaker about Mothman and high strangeness. We got Kevin Lee Nelson talking about Wendigo lore, of course, one of the authors of the Van Meter Visitor book. We've got Indigenous Cryptids, of course, by Allison Jornlin. I know I've seen her on Clubhouse, I think hanging around in a few of Sharon's rooms. Chad Lewis is doing a tour of the town. There's a walking tour. There's a bus tour as well. We've got my friend Nash Hoover doing a Sasquatch Around the World presentation, which that should be pretty intense. We also got Zelia Edgar there talking about UFO occupant clothing, which should be very interesting. We've got Ken Gearhard talking about strange cases of flying cryptids, which I am super excited about. Monsters of America by David Weatherly, another huge name, and man, that could be over anything. So I'm excited for that as well. And then there's another tour at 7:45, kind of the night before as well, there's a special VIP tour, and then there's also a showing of a documentary about the Van Meter visitor, which would be pretty cool. It's the first time there's been a documentary made about it, which I'm excited about. Let's move on. Here we've got a movie premiere of On the Trail of Bigfoot: The Journey happening today, in just a few hours. Actually, if you're in the Canton, Ohio area, you can go to the Canton Palace Theater. Doors are opening at 5:30 p.m. Eastern time. I want to say tickets are $7. You want to check ahead of time if you're actually going to go, because I'm not sure if they're sold at the door. Either way, if you did the Kickstarter, I also heard that you should have access to watching On the Trail of Bigfoot: The Journey, which is a super amazing documentary by Seth Breedlove and Small Town Monsters. It's super, super good. Jeff, Greg, come on up, man. I'm going to bring you up here. He does have something to say. Greg, what's going on, man?
It's going good, man. How are you?
Doing well, doing well.
I'm driving today. I have to confirm that yes, the On the Trail of Bigfoot: The Journey is available to the Kickstarter backers now. I got my email this morning, so everybody can watch that. And of course, we got lots of buddies in that movie: Alex Petikoff and Mike Ann, the Tactical Bigfoot Research. Are the guys from Wild and Weird West Virginia in it too? Joe and Ron? You've seen it, right, Jeremiah?
Yes, I have. I want to say
Oh no, they're in
they're
the
not. They're in
UFO one.
Finding Bigfoot. Yeah. Yep.
They're going to be in the UFO one, I think.
Sorry, Greg. I know so much stuff in my head right now. I have to like think through what I can say and what I can't say.
Right.
You know what I mean? But
No
yeah, no.
spoilers
Finding
either.
Bigfoot Return.
Yeah, we won't give any spoilers.
Right.
I haven't watched The Journey yet, but I plan on watching it tonight, and I'll put up a review with no spoilers in it. Other news I've personally come across, we have Mothboy Mike and Danner from Conjure Dust Designs touring West Virginia this week, promoting their book, giving it out to libraries. Check out their Instagrams at Michael David Shang and at Conjure Dust Designs on Instagram, and they got lots of cool pictures from all over West Virginia going on there. And also directly from Mothboy Matt, there will be a Mothboys Festival this year in Morgantown, West Virginia, and that's looking like early August. August 7th, I believe, is the tentative date at this point. And those are the like entertainment news items that I got for you all.
Dude, that's awesome. I'm glad you brought up the actually all that stuff. A few of them I was going to talk about, and I was so the Mothboy Matt thing is that's out to the public now. That's pretty cool. I'm gonna hope it is. If not, I'll have
It's
to.
out. It's out to the clubhouse members now.
Okay, cool. All right, awesome. Oh man, I love it. I love it. Yeah, definitely. If you haven't checked out Mothman Learns the ABCs, that is a solid book for kids and also for adults, because there's some funny jokes in there too. You'll get as you're reading it to your kid, or if you just want to read it, like get it for yourself, that's fine too. Get a copy for your local library. I'm so pleased that they were able to drive around West Virginia and donate them to local libraries. Very cool. So if you haven't picked one up, pick one up. Also, pick one up to donate. I'll have the Etsy link. You can get it on Etsy or Amazon, but the Etsy link is going to be a better experience all around, I would say. Let's continue with some entertainment news here. So we got some interesting stuff coming up. I'm going to have an article where Hulu's Sasquatch documentary director, there's an interesting article I'll have linked where, so this is going to be a pretty intense documentary series on Hulu, where it's going to be about, it's going to include, cannabis farmers, but there's going to be a Bigfoot attack. and there's going to be all sorts of stuff. So definitely go ahead and check that out. There's also an interesting, it's a mockumentary. So 15 Things You Didn't Know About Bigfoot. And it's about a guy. It's a kind of a comedy thing, but he hooks up with a cryptid rock star. And I think this is just going to be a silly, fun mockumentary office style thing. I would probably watch it yourself before you watch it with kids because I think it might get a little wild, but I'll have the link to that as well. My buddy Tobias Wayland has written an article that really is kind of interesting. It's about upright bear in North Carolina draws comparison to Bigfoot. And sometimes we need to definitely have our minds open to, I think that Bigfoot is an undiscovered ape, but he brings up some images of this bear was shown standing up on hind legs for 10 minutes, and that's pretty crazy. It's a fun read, and definitely check out Tobias's stuff over at singularfortean.com. Again, they are a what's it called, affiliate of the podcast. So full disclosure there, but it's good content. All right, continuing on. Also, I'm going to do a little quick reset of the room. This is the 5-minute cryptozoology news. We are going through different news items that have to do with cryptozoology in some way that have occurred throughout this last week. If you have any comments about stories I'm sharing, feel free to raise your hand. You can come up on stage. Sharon is hanging out with me right now. Thank you for that. And then at the end, we'll have a time for if you have any other stories to share. Again, this is recorded. It will be put up on YouTube. But this is kind of a fun story that came out of the BBC Newswire. Mystery tree beast turns out to be croissant. So here's a story. When animal welfare officers received a report of unusual animal lurking in a tree in the Polish city of Krakow, they were not sure what to expect. Pretty much, they thought it was some crazy iguana or something, orange iguana, and it turned out to be a huge croissant pastry. So you never know what you're gonna find. And before you freak out too much about an unknown animal, definitely do look a little bit closer into it. So thankfully they weren't attacked by the croissant there. Okay, the next one. I really hope we have some discussion on this, guys, because this is kind of huge. Here's the thing. There's a statue of a Mothman in Point Pleasant, West Virginia. You may know about this guy. Here's what's going on with the Mothman statue. And to get the whole story, you have to be active on a lot of different social media networks. You have to be active on TikTok, Facebook, stuff like that. Pretty much what's happening is people keep coming up to the Mothman statue and they're leaving these cans of baked beans around it. And it all ties back, from what I've found out, to a game called Fallout 76, where there's a cult about the Mothman in the game, and baked bean cans are somehow involved, right? So here's the thing. Is it funny? Yeah, it is. Is it a waste of baked beans if you just leave it there? Yes, it is. So another thing is there are little pantries around the town. Leave the baked beans in there. Sure, take your picture, but then, let's have the baked beans be put to use too. Another thing is I'm using this platform to kind of get a message out to listeners. If you do decide to do this, please, be aware of what's going on, because it's at the point where the mayor of the town is kind of like, hey, this is funny, but not really. And wouldn't it be terrible if the statue got taken out of the town? Can you imagine if the Mothman festival without the Mothman statue? I mean, take your funny picture, but also don't ruin it for the rest of us. So that's my thoughts there about the Mothman statue and the baked bean can controversy. If anyone else has thoughts on that, definitely feel free to chime in or raise your hand. But
I think it's kind of
yeah,
interesting that the statue represents a lot of things. It is somewhat of a queer icon as well. I think it's quite interesting that it's drawing a whole lot of other things, vision to the town besides the fact that it's supposed to represent this, the legendary story. So quite interesting. That's a great story, Jeremiah. Good one.
yeah, and it's definitely great how this icon can be used for all different cultures, and I think that's a really cool thing. Ashley, definitely welcome to the stage. What thoughts do you have?
Yeah, well, I was in one of these rooms recently, and I spoke about kind of the pushback that the townspeople are giving with the whole Mothman thing. And this definitely doesn't help. I mean, Point Pleasant is very fun. It is very gimmicky when it comes to the Mothman stuff, and it's a good time. But one of my friends recently, he finally traveled, made it to the statue, and he took a picture, and it's just like littered with all kinds of stuff. And as somebody that's there quite frequently, I mean, that doesn't typically happen. But unfortunately, I mean, like you said, yes, take your pictures, do your thing, but if people keep doing this, they kind of ruin the fun for everybody. I mean, the townspeople there don't want a surplus of baked beans at their statue. So, and that's, it's just not going to help, the residents kind of get more comfortable with the idea of their legend. So that's just my take on it.
I think that's a great point. Leave the statue better than you found it. Dee, thank you for coming up on stage. What thoughts do you have about this?
The thoughts I have about this are thoughts that I often have when I hear about things related to Point Pleasant and the Mothman. And then I think that sometimes people lose sight of the fact that for the people of Point Pleasant, Mothman is closely tied to the Silver Bridge collapse. And so we're lucky that they've kind of embraced Mothman as this figure that they'll put a statue up in their town and they'll allow a festival to happen there. But to me, Mothman is always a reminder of the fact that lives were lost in association with that story. And so I think respect is owed to the town and in a way to the statue too, so that, like you mentioned, it doesn't get taken away from us.
That is that is a fantastic viewpoint, D. I've never actually thought of that. I mean, it's possible people in that town are definitely very close related to people that could have lost lives in that tragedy. And like, yeah, yeah. Thank you for bringing that up. That is a really really good point. All right. Unless we have any other thoughts on the Mothman statue, I've got a few more to share here. So, this one's really cool, especially for people in the Midwest, because in Midwest we don't get a lot of cool cryptid stuff. But so, gentleman, Hart making big plans for the World Myth Museum, and this is really cool. So, pretty much, it's a sculpture artist who created a traveling exhibit called the Gardens of Myth. And if you are a longtime fan of Bigfoot Society, you've seen the picture of me standing in like a field with flowers with a huge Bigfoot sculpture behind it. That's at a large garden center area arboretum just outside of Kansas City Museum. And we took a family trip there, and it just happened to be during this amazing exhibit called Gardens of Myth. And there were gnomes, there were minotaurs, there were Bigfoot, there was anything weird that you could throw. There were dragons and just huge things. Pretty much this guy is making a huge museum where it's going to have massive sculptures about world myths, cryptozoology, stuff like that. 25-foot tall young dragon is going to be involved. It looks like very cool stuff. So I plan on interviewing this guy because part of that is kind of like what made me want to get into the podcast as well. I got kind of inspired by seeing all these sculptures. There's a whole lot of different reasons. The other thing, I like drawing attention to different accounts if they put amazing content out. If you're listening to this and you're not following the Sasquatch Archives on YouTube, you really, really need to. And Todd just released a video yesterday. It's Renee DeHinden discussing Paul Freeman footprint cast, but it's updated with Dr. Meldrum's comments, which is really cool. I can't wait to listen to this video later on tonight, but definitely you'll want to check that out as well. But yeah, at this point, if anyone else has any other articles or news items or crazy stuff going on with cryptozoology, feel free to raise your hand. I'll give you a few minutes, but I definitely want to make sure that I didn't miss anything. I'll give you one more minute. Again, this is going to be posted on the Bigfoot Society YouTube probably later tonight, and also on BigfootSocietyPodcast.com. Under the Clubhouse section, there'll be different different resources to check. Yeah, I've got a. There we go. My alarm was going off. My bad. But thanks to all for hanging out. Actually, Alex, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I kind of do. Can you give us maybe a 5-minute? I don't know if you're available. Do you mind talking about how the trip out west went? Yeah. And
Hi,
Alex,
can you
I'm
guys
I'm
hear me
doing
okay?
you. I want you to definitely talk about how you're doing the recap episode this Monday. So this maybe
Sure,
be like a
sure.
teaser for that. You know what I mean?
Okay, so disclosure, I am currently at a Pet Boys getting my car tire fixed.
Oh
So
snap!
if this gets interrupted, I'll try to keep it quick. But so yeah, this coming Monday on my live stream Sasquatch Out of the Shadows on YouTube, we're gonna be doing a recap episode of the Small Town Monsters expedition to the Pacific Northwest. So we spent about a week out there with the Olympic Project, which in my opinion is one of the most legitimate, I suppose, Bigfoot research groups in the country and the world. I mean, they're just absolutely incredible people. We were shooting 2 documentaries. So actually today is the premiere of On the Trail of Bigfoot, The Journey, which we filmed last June in the Adirondack Mountains. But in the Pacific Northwest, we were filming the follow-up to it, which will be called On the Trail of Bigfoot, The Discovery, which is about the Olympic Project. And then my film, which is kind of a companion piece called Beyond the Trail. I'm still working on the second part of the title, probably the Olympic Sasquatch or something like that. So basically, they kind of go hand in hand. But we got to spend time at the so-called nest sites that the Olympic Project has been researching now since about 2016. Since they were basically told about that, people reached out to them. A surveyor discovered these strange nest-like sites in these thick hemlock huckleberry forests right in the Olympic Peninsula. And so we were actually the first film crew to really go in there and spend time in there. Myself and Eli Watson, we actually camped out at the site with Shane Corson and some of the other Olympic Project members for 2 nights in a row. We were the first people to ever camp out in the immediate vicinity of the first nests that were discovered in 2016. And just having been there, it absolutely blows me away. The area. So you have these 9-foot tall huckleberry bushes all around that are, just so difficult to get through. The motivation to get through an area like that is just crazy. So they discovered these nests. A surveyor actually was working on a piece of land there, discovered these nests. He'd been working for 30 years all across the Pacific Northwest, and this was the first time he'd ever seen anything like this. And they basically what was done was these enormous nests that were made out of huckleberry branches that were woven together. And snapping a huckleberry branch with your bare hands I tried it. It's extremely difficult. It's a very thick branch for whatever reason. Even just a small twig-looking thing is very hard to manipulate. So they've basically been able to eliminate the possibility of elk, a bear, and cougar being the 3 primary animals out there, aside from black-tailed deer, as the culprits. So it's super interesting, and having been there, it really gave me a big perspective, because you hear about the nest and they've trickled some information out, but they're not one of these kind of jump the gun groups and immediately say it's Bigfoot. They've really spent time doing that, and they found about 26 different nests up and down this wooded area on the ridges near a river where there's salmon runs. So they're very strategically placed, and it's just a super interesting place. We got to spend time there, and their property that they have in the upper Olympics, where there's been a lot of roadside crossings as well as other activity. We actually were on the trail of a mountain lion as we were there. and found some pretty great tracks right as we were up there. And there's some possible audio we got that night, but we're having David Ellis, who's one of the leaders of the Olympic Project and a sound expert. He's kind of looking at the audio, and overall, it was just an amazing time. This Monday, we'll be doing a recap, as I mentioned on my live stream. We're going to be having on basically Seth, his wife, Eli Watson, Aaron Gaskin on the crew. Probably a couple of the Olympic Project members will be making an appearance as well. And that's 8 p.m. Eastern on YouTube, Sasquatch Out of the Shadows. So that'll be really fun. We're going to be talking about the films and then, kind of our experiences out there. So that's pretty much it.
Alex, thank you so much for coming up and sharing that all about that. I'm extremely excited for Monday night. That is going to be some awesome chats that you have. We are coming up on half an hour. Believe it or not, this is really starting to turn into something else. But one more chance if anyone has anything else to share. Cryptozoology.
I have something
go ahead.
Really
share.
quick,
Yeah.
Jeremiah. Yeah. There was an article that came out on April 8th in Hakai magazine. It's just affiliated with the Atlantic magazine, and it talks about the story of refinding a new octopus species that was once thought lost, but the zoologist researcher was able to use people's local stories to determine that the species still did exist, and she was able to then capture it again. This was Callista octopus furvis, and it reminded me of the story of the Sirens reticulata. Same deal. This specimen existed but was lost. The knowledge was lost, and the researchers were able to use locals and their stories to determine that the species was still around, and they were able to capture it. So some good zoological news.
That is awesome. Like I always love that, where it's like, we're sad because we've, humans messed it up again, and other animals extinct. But then when we get to find them again, that's really cool. So thank you so much for sharing that with us, Sharon. All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and shut down the room, but thank you again for sharing the stories all, and for spending a half an hour with us. We'll be doing this, of course, every Saturday afternoon at 1 p.m. Central, and I am going to start putting them up on YouTube now. So if Bigfoot Society YouTube, you can go to BigfootSocietyPodcast.com under Clubhouse. I'll have the links there. And then I will have a link to the YouTube video as well. That should be up later today. But again, thanks all. If this is your first time hanging out in the Bigfoot Society Clubhouse, definitely tap where it says Bigfoot Society at the top. Follow this club. We'll get you hooked in so you don't miss any conversations. Our main room we have is Wednesday nights at 9:30 p.m. Central, and we have a good time discussing stuff all the time. But thanks again for hanging out all, and I will be chatting with you next week. I'll go ahead and close down the room. The views and opinions expressed are those of the guest and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Bigfoot Society. Any content provided by our guests are not intended to malign any religion, ethnic group, club, organization, company, individual, or anyone. Thank you.